The Battle of Kursk, fought between July and August 1943, stands as one of the largest and most brutal confrontations of World War II. Following the devastating German defeat at Stalingrad, Adolf Hitler was determined to regain the initiative on the Eastern Front. The Soviets, however, anticipated another German offensive. Both sides amassed unprecedented numbers of tanks, aircraft, and troops around the Kursk salient, a massive bulge in the Soviet front line. The Germans launched Operation Citadel, hoping to encircle and annihilate Soviet forces in the region. What followed was not only a clash of steel and fire, but also a turning point in the war. In the intense footage and eyewitness accounts, we see the landscape engulfed in flames, the roar of engines deafening, and the earth trembling beneath thousands of advancing tanks. Kursk became a symbol of Soviet resilience and the ultimate test of German military power. As the spring of 1943 passed, both armies prepared for a showdown unlike any before. The German High Command gathered over 900,000 men, 3,000 tanks, and 2,000 aircraft, including the fearsome new Tiger and Panther tanks. On the other side, the Soviets, forewarned by intelligence reports, built layer upon layer of defences, nearly 3,000 miles of trenches, minefields, and artillery positions. Civilians were evacuated, and the Red Army dug in, waiting. German engineers tested their tanks for the rugged terrain, while Soviet workers laboured day and night to fortify every possible approach. Hitler delayed the attack multiple times, hoping to field newer tanks. But this hesitation allowed the Soviets to prepare even more effectively. The stage was set for an apocalyptic confrontation, and both armies understood that Kursk could decide the fate of the Eastern Front, and perhaps the entire war. At dawn on July 5, 1943, the German guns thundered to life. Thousands of artillery shells and rockets crashed into Soviet positions, shaking the ground for miles. But the Soviets were ready. Their own artillery responded with a ferocious counter barrage that stunned German troops. As panzers rolled forward, they met an ocean of mines, barbed wire, and anti-tank guns. German formations struggled to advance even a few miles, as Soviet defences proved far stronger than anticipated. The Luftwaffe and Soviet Air Force clashed overhead in one of the largest air battles of the war, with hundreds of aircraft spiralling down in smoke and flame. Despite the chaos, both sides fought with grim determination. German tank crews pushed through burning wrecks, while Soviet soldiers, often surrounded, refused to retreat. The footage from this phase of the battle captures the raw fury and unimaginable destruction of modern mechanized warfare. The most intense and iconic moment of the Battle of Kursk came on July 12, 1943, near the small village of Prokhorovka. Here, nearly 1,000 tanks from both sides collided in what many historians call the largest tank battle in history. Soviet T-34s charged head on into the elite German SS Panzer divisions. The battlefield turned into a chaotic inferno. Tanks ramming tanks, shells ricocheting off armour, and explosions tearing through lines. Dust and smoke filled the air, making visibility almost zero. Soviet tank commanders closed the distance to neutralize the superior range of German guns. At such close quarters, it became a brutal slugfest. The footage shows endless columns of burning tanks, shattered turrets, and soldiers fighting amidst metal carcasses. Though the Soviets suffered massive losses, their sheer numbers and courage eventually forced the Germans to halt their advance. Prokhorovka became a symbol of Soviet heroism and German frustration. After days of intense combat, the German offensive began to lose momentum. the Soviet High Command, led by Generals Zhukov and Rokossovsky, launched powerful counterattacks from both the northern and southern flanks. Fresh Soviet tank armies rolled into battle, while the Red Air Force gained increasing control of the skies. German fuel shortages and mechanical failures worsened the situation. Panther tanks frequently broke down, and Tiger tanks, though deadly, were too few to make a decisive impact. Soviet artillery hammered German positions relentlessly. The once bold German divisions now found themselves defending against waves of Soviet assaults. Footage from this phase shows exhausted German troops retreating through burning villages, their faces blackened with soot. The tide had turned. For the first time, the Wehrmacht's armoured spearhead was decisively blunted, signalling that Germany's days of sweeping victories in the east were over. The Soviet victory at Kursk was not merely a product of manpower and tanks. It was also a triumph of intelligence and deception. Soviet spies had already informed Stalin of the exact timing and direction of the German assault. Using this knowledge, Soviet commanders constructed multiple defensive belts, each one designed to slow, bleed, and eventually stop the enemy. Fake airfields and dummy tank positions missiled German reconnaissance aircraft. Meanwhile, Soviet radio operators broadcasted false messages to confuse German intelligence. These tactics made the German High Command underestimate Soviet strength and readiness. The effectiveness of Soviet camouflage and counterintelligence can be seen in wartime footage, showing destroyed German tanks halted before unseen minefields. Kursk demonstrated how the Soviets had evolved. They were no longer the disorganized defenders of 1941. They were now masters of strategy, deception, and endurance, capable of outsmarting even Germany's most experienced commanders. The Battle of Kursk was not only a clash of machines, but also a human tragedy of immense proportions. Over 2 million soldiers fought in the campaign, and casualties on both sides were staggering. Estimates suggest that nearly 800,000 men were killed, wounded, or missing. The countryside was littered with wrecked tanks, burned-out villages, and mass graves. For the soldiers, life became a living nightmare of fire, smoke, and screams. The footage from the front shows medics carrying wounded comrades under constant bombardment, and soldiers collapsing from exhaustion. Civilians caught in the crossfire suffered horribly. Their homes destroyed, their fields turned to wastelands. Yet amid the horror, stories of extraordinary courage emerged. Soviet tank crews fought to the last shell, and German medics treated both friend and foe. Kursk revealed the terrible price of total war and the indomitable spirit of those who endured it. Kursk was also a proving ground for new military technology. The Germans introduced the Panther tank, designed to outmatch the Soviet T-34, and deployed improved versions of the Tiger I. These machines were formidable, but plagued by mechanical issues and logistical challenges. The Soviets, in contrast, relied on the reliable and mass-produced T-34, which could be repaired quickly and operated in harsh conditions. The use of anti-tank rifles, minefields, and self-propelled guns showed how the nature of warfare was changing. Aircraft played a crucial role too. The Soviet Il-2 Sturmovik and the German Stuka dive bomber became symbols of destruction from the sky. In every frame of battle footage, you can see how technology dictated survival. Kursk was not just the largest tank battle. It was a glimpse into the future of mechanized warfare, where machines, not men alone, decided victory and defeat. By mid-August 1943, the German offensive had completely failed. The Red Army pushed the Germans back across a broad front, liberating cities such as Orel and Kharkov. The defeat at Kursk marked the last major German offensive on the Eastern Front. From that point onward, the Wehrmacht was forced into a defensive war. The Soviet Union gained the strategic initiative and would never relinquish it again. The footage of jubilant Soviet troops raising flags over captured villages stands in stark contrast to the grim faces of retreating German soldiers. The myth of German invincibility had been shattered. Kursk not only weakened the Wehrmacht militarily, but also psychologically. It proved that the Soviet war machine was now capable of both absorbing massive blows and delivering crushing counterstrikes. From the ashes of Kursk, the path to Berlin began, slow, bloody, but unstoppable. The Battle of Kursk remains etched in history as the turning point of the Eastern Front, and one of humanity's most intense military struggles. The immense scale of destruction, the bravery of the soldiers, and the tactical lessons learned continue to fascinate historians and filmmakers alike. Intense footage from the battlefield. Tanks erupting in flames, soldiers charging through smoke, and the endless roar of artillery serves as a haunting reminder of war's brutality. Today, memorials and museums at Kursk stand as symbols of sacrifice and resilience. For the Soviet Union, Kursk became a story of redemption. For Germany, a lesson in the limits of aggression. The echoes of that battle still resound through military history. It was not merely a fight for land. It was a struggle for the future of Europe. The Battle of Kursk proved that courage, preparation, and determination could turn the tide of war forever.